All right. All right, so we're gonna do a little mic checks just to make sure things are working. I got my voice may sound a little bit different. Yeah, so my voice might sound a little bit different going into this podcast. I did a couple of minor adjustments for some microphone filtering, and hopefully they actually enhance my voice so it doesn't sound too bad, or I don't sound as crisp at certain times. I know there were problems of that in the past. Anyhow, gonna check the YouTubes. I think we're all good. Yeah. Okay. So let's get started. So it's been a long time since we've checked in, since I've done one of these. And I guess a life update for the podcast world. I know the community Discord world got some updates before everyone else did. Again, I regularly probably update everything through there first, but um, yeah, I was finishing out like the last month of my last quarter of school, and I just graduated over this past week. So yeah, I'm currently done with school, unless if I want to shoot for a master's, which I don't know why I would do that, or a doctorate. I wouldn't know why I would do that unless if I wanted to shoot for like psychology or something. Up to me. I don't know. Anyways, that's like a chapter that's done for now. We'll have to worry about that for a while. In other future news, I do have a job coming up that I start in the middle of July. So I'll be attending to that as my next job, like 9 to 5 obligation. Um, what else? It was Healthy Dialogue's birthday on June 2nd. I remember last year I ended up just creating this community, or having this vision for this community and podcast. Uh, it's wild how far this thing has come, and maybe how like far I've come as well. Like, I've met a lot of people that I am proud to have in the community Discord as well. So yeah, so as of right now, we are like 3 weeks due overdue for the celebration of Healthy Dialogue's birthday. I didn't really have anything planned. In the moment, I actually didn't even realize it was like Healthy Dialogue's birthday. Like, I had to be like, I don't know. I was like reading back over my rules section, because it's been a long time since I've looked at that. And the start here, like both those two like text channels like accurately described how I was feeling when I was writing, or when I was thinking of like the creation of this place. Which I feel like some people have found some relief from, I guess, the ideas that that we generated. So yeah, it's a great time. I'm here. I'm happy. I know I haven't been here for for 4 weeks, but I'm back again. The hope would be that I would be on like another 1 week, or another podcast like every week rather, going back to the roots of once a week. Got to catch up to the 50-second mark. We're like 12 behind, I guess, at this pace. So we got to catch up. Not actually. Anyways, for our main topic today, we'll be talking about overpopulation. Um, I've heard a bunch of different takes in very recent weeks, months, about people feeling that the world is having an overpopulation crisis. And the problem okay, and part of the reason why I feel like I need to take a stance here is because these other people feel negatively about like overpopulation being a crisis that the world needs to be solving. And I know for some other people they feel the exact same way. But I also hear a bunch of different sources also say the opposite. It's that the overpopulation crisis isn't as much of a crisis as people think it is. But in general, I think the world could be better, and the overpopulation problems that are arising, which are actually pretty correlated with environmentalist problems at the same time. I think once you optimize those two, that would leave the planet in a better spot. So I think actually listening to the overpopulation takes, as well as the environmentalist takes, would also benefit everyone, regardless whether they think it's a problem or not. So I started off in the outline with a little definition. Overpopulation or overabundance is a phenomenon in which a species population becomes larger than the carrying capacity of its environment. In the second bullet point I have listed is often linked with environmental issues. So I actually think environmental issues are partially blown up by the population's needs. And so one resource that I've looked at, and actually in the outline, if you click the link on either the video or if you're within the, yeah, it'll link you to the Discord with like the actual outline. And the outline has some web links that I have like reference for some ideas that I've thrown out. So they were like rooted in some external sources, not to say that each of them are necessarily trustworthy, but they generate ideas that we should be like combating when solving this whole problem. So part of the overpopulationist claims is that there's a natural resource depletion, and the human species causes problems for like other species and how we manage Earth's resources. And so that's kind of the environmentalist take on like humanity in regards to like overpopulation. And correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misstating on behalf of someone else, but from my understanding, that's like the main claim for people who think or who have like environment in mind. Okay, so something that I did read on the same environment part, or rather the overpopulation part, is that medical and technological advancements have increased human lifespan over the past century. And whether that's for better or for worse, I think the added problem of well, you have people living longer, but you still have the same growth or same population growth, means that you have to take care of more people, and actually the same people for a lot longer. So the span at which resources need to be flown throughout the network of the population needs to be optimized even more, or at least the critical dimension of how critical it is to have a network that works well with resource flow is even more in demand than in the past, where it wasn't as critical, where resources don't need to be, where demand wasn't like as big, I guess, from my understanding. Excuse me, give me a sec. It is actually great that people can live a lot longer. The span at which people, I don't know, it's like I think people take a look at the lifespan a little bit differently, much differently now than they did in the past. I think some people find it plausible to live until they are 80 years old. I imagine I'd be something similar. I might die earlier for like health issues that, that I've made mistakes on in the past like 7-8 years. But hopefully people can turn that around for themselves and think about when they're three times the age that they're currently at, especially people like us, people like me, who are in their mid 20s and don't really have a good idea of how long like life actually is. So many other people. I feel like that's another thing that I wanted to talk about in like a different podcast, which I mean we already did talk about like time in a previous one, but your learned experience with time is based on like how much you've experienced time. And so I don't think anyone knows what means to be 75 years old, nor would I really know what it means to be like 30 years old, right? It's like the timeline at which you hit critical portions of or critical milestones is up to how life like just happens. It's like random elements that dictate when events happen in your life. But yeah, it's like all these technological advancements have enabled this new generation of longer life that people can live, which I think benefits most everyone, um, except for people who want to leave earlier. But I guess I wouldn't know where to go from that. The statistic or the trajectory at which this same resource said, or this website said, is that there's a trajectory of 1 billion. We're adding like a billion to the human population every 12 years. So in about like 12 years, we should have around like 9 billion people on the planet. But obviously, if you've understood like production flow and whatnot, and I've had plenty of experience with games that require like a production flow to meet the needs of the production itself, or to meet the needs of a society. There's like several games that portray that specific survival element so well that you can take like as many games as you want. There's also just, I mean, obviously people take the real life study of these different, or of this topic in particular, just to generate the numbers needed to make those same predictions. But yeah, it's clearly a necessity to be able to have the prediction of what kind of resource flow you need and how optimal how to optimize it when it gets too ugly and when people can't get the resources they need. Like you need to have like an optimal solution, or else you're gonna have costly problems, and sometimes the cost of those problems are people's lives, which I think is why the urgency to claim for overpopulation is like a clear talking point in today's environmental overpopulation issues, because people can see like the sacrifices, or the not the sacrifices but the casualties of unproductive resource flows. And so if you're able to optimize that, I think people would be more hopeful about managing a bigger population that we're on like a path for. But yeah, as in terms of like having a growing population, clearly there's going to be like a growing need that comes along with that. And I think a lot of people take the snapshot of the present and make the decision that today's problems are going to be blown up in the same way with a bigger volume of people that we need to care for. And people can either make the claim that the growing needs is going to be too much for us and just give up on like our current system and how we flow everything, or they'll just make the claim that the mismanaged, inefficient network of resources is justifiable enough to have some or to have some like population limiters or population laws in place. And I think there's some cultures and countries that try to manage like define the role at which an individual of that society needs to fulfill. And I think the trade off if you don't do that is I don't know. There's a consequence for not playing the role, and I think part of that consequence is an indicator that they don't want you in that community of people, um, which is kind of their way of like nudging people off or sending people to die. Like for example, in America, you've got this problem where there's like homelessness in America in like some major cities, and I think later in the outline I have a list of the top cities in America with the biggest number of homeless people, which is it's a problem for sure. But I guess what I will say is that homelessness doesn't actually translate to jobless. Unemployment, I think, had its own statistics and they weren't necessarily correlated. But you would hope that most everyone had as like homes as a resource for people to fall back to. Clearly, we don't have a clearly we don't manage the amount of homes that we have available and give them directly to fix like the homeless crisis, right? Like some people may take a look at that situation and say that's a mismanagement of housing resources and they should be redirected towards people who don't have like housing. But part of the problem is that those same people who are homeless may not have the money to spend to pay for that home. And so I think a lot of people take a look at that and stand up for the perspective of like the homeless people, the fact that there are homeless people, and make a remark about how the institutions and the societal structure are failing the individuals. And some others may say that like these are the people who shouldn't be here in the first place if they can't pay for, if they can't meet the basic need of paying for the place that they want to have a roof above their head for, then that's on them too. And I think one other thing that some people have been mentioning to me is that overpopulation, or this overpopulation crisis and environmental crisis is like justification for you to make change for yourself. And change for yourself means like either sacrificing your potential for future children, and some people even took a more drastic measure of getting rid of their whole carbon footprint. And so just offing themselves in the hopes that like overpopulation, like in the name of overpopulation, it's fixing the it's a step towards fixing the problem, which I think is, I don't know, in terms of where I want to land with this whole statement, I guess I want to say I would like to have children, right? I think having children would be a blessing for me. Do I want to have like the do I want to be doing something good for the environment too and towards like overpopulation in general? Yeah. But I think if I were to do that, the problem that I'd want to fix would be managing resources better so that we can handle a bigger volume of a population to handle, so that these problems that are currently associated with environmental issues and population, such as like pollution and uh, renewable energy, which we haven't which we haven't converted to yet at all. I think we've started, but it's clearly not like a preferred choice. I would like to have those problems fixed to have like a promising future for like future generations to look forward to. And it's not just like, my children in mind. It'd be like grandchildren and then great grandchildren, yada yada yada. Currently those like overpopulation problems are I don't I think it's pretty hard for everyone in this current generation to mind map their way through the problem itself and feel hopeful about like a brighter future. So I think part of the changes that need to happen in our generation is making sure that there is a bright future for the people after us. Okay, so the next bullet point in the outline, I was going to talk about like how to combat overpopulation, because there have been countries and communities that have tried. So China, namely, had like a one-child policy, and from my understanding, from like what I've heard from like other people tell me directly, as well as like some research on my own, is that like culturally, I think men look after parents, and then women like join men. So in that like line of logic, you would clearly want like a man as like a child to have as like a child, because that would be like some promise that would take care of you in the future. And so I think culturally that did China, like the Chinese culture, a disadvantage, because some people would end up some people would keep making babies until they actually got a guy, and so I think that led to some problems with, especially with how they structure their like resource flow in general. I keep hearing they're a communist society, which to me, I don't know the specific details about that, but it sounds like it didn't really do them that much of a favor. So, anyways, they put in place, implemented a one-child policy, and I think that got revoked by 2015. And I don't know how well that's actually contributed to their problem. I think they've reduced the birthing rate by a lot. But I also know that there were illegal birthing methods as well from that time. So it came with the price. And I think generally speaking, it solved the major problem to some degree. So, but like part of the problem that they still face with a overpopulation, what they claim to be an overpopulation, is that they still don't have enough jobs to supply like the population for work. And because they have like so many jobs that are like overlapping with each other, so there's like more people to do specific jobs, that like reduces the wages of every employee, because like less work to do split across like multiple people. I think that's where like the logic comes in. But yeah, on top of the job demand and supply, there was also this problem of pollution and like general economic problems for everyone. So yeah, I think that's probably the last thing that you want to have happen as a society, where you're not able to supply the people that need it with the resources they need. But that was a Chinese problem that was developed culturally, or that was pretty much originated from like a cultural value. So I think for the most part, the Chinese had, I don't want to say they fixed their problem. They kind of did. It's just the morality of like enforcing a one child policy is, it'd be hard to get behind as an American. So I guess you have to admit that it did work though. So maybe you have to get rid of morality in order to change the overpopulation for the better. And then I have another linked article which is describes overpopulation in America. And it says almost 90% of population growth is fueled by immigration, which I have to admit sounds like very biased information. According to Pew Research, humanely scaling back future levels of immigration would help America pursue a sustainable future. Which, I don't know, man. How can you say that like 90% of the population is fueled by immigration? I I'd have to look into more statistics about that, but that seems like a very biased view to to backstab like immigration as an act. Because America is supposed to stand for opportunity. If you want to like limit opportunity to certain people, then you're not really about freedom anymore. It's hard being an American, man. We also got homeless problems in big cities, and like I said before, homeless doesn't necessarily mean like jobless or that there's like an overpopulation or the association with overpopulation. But I do think it's weird that we have a homeless problem with as a country with like a lot of money, with people with a lot of money. So how do you justify 78,000 New York City homeless people? How do you justify 56,000 LA LA city and county homeless people? Those are the top two. The third one is actually my county and my city. Seattle and King County with 11,000 people, which is not nearly anywhere close to 78,000 people as New York City, but you know, that's the third top ranked city on this list. That's pretty rough. I'm pretty sure Portland probably has a homeless problem as well. But yeah, you would hope that all these people would 78,000's a lot, man. You would hope that it'd be taken care of by, I mean, there's some people who actually stand up for like the homeless people who like really consider homelessness as an actual problem. I'm actually very passionate about homelessness as well. So I like, as much as I'd want to have those people um have like a shelter to live in, I also think that they shouldn't get it for free. So, or they'd have to work at something in order to earn it. But they should be like deserving of one, as long as they're willing to work at it. Yeah, there's a lot on this list, and it's really unfortunate that like homelessness is, I don't know, for whatever reason that people can't like afford it or see that as like an option. You'd hope that it'd be better. Maybe in some cities it's more correlated with overpopulation than others. Be hard to tell. Um, in addition to the overpopulation, overpopulationist arguments. Some people even generate lists describing what an individual can do to counter the societal problem of overpopulation. And one of the things on that list was have fewer children. One is good, two is enough. This resource is actually associated with Stanford. So it was a little off-putting that Stanford would put something like that, or would associate themselves with this article or with this group. But yeah, this group is saying that having fewer children is actually something you can do on the individual level to fix the overpopulation problem. And this one stands out for me in particular, or for me especially, because a lot of people in my network believe that like having children would contribute to the overpopulation problem. And as a friend looking out for them, I feel like that should not be the outlook that they should have about having a like leaving their legacy, or yeah, leaving their legacy on to like the next generation, because there is no generation to leave your legacy to. The next bullet point on that list, though, from that same group, is consider adoption. And that's actually something that wasn't brought up from earlier sources, is that you need to be considering like some of the kids that are already born in a part of the population, and thinking about like adopting people from that instead of increasing the total population from that. And I think it's terrible that like kids need to be sent up for adoption. It's, you would think, I don't know. It's a rough spot because you don't believe that like adoptee kids are like worth taking in the name of overpopulation. Like that's just not, I feel like there's something special that needs to be said about having your own kid. I think if that's possible, you should like pursue it. But there's sources out here saying that you'll take like a more virtuous stance for the overpopulation problem, the overpopulation movement, if you were to adopt instead. Which, I mean, is that the sacrifice of your own? I don't know. They're asking you to sacrifice like a deeper bond with a child that you know is yours, or loving someone else who isn't yours, but it's like I don't know, like artificially, I guess. It's like a terrible way to look at adoption, and I'm sorry I said it, I guess, but it's just a rough spot. Read, educate yourself about population issues. I gotta read more, clearly. Um, and then there's like other sources on the internet that describe like some non-useful information in regards to like the overpopulation problem. So there was like some video that I saw that pretty much said that overpopulation in America isn't like worth worrying over, because like the total population at which people live in terms of space, like American soil space, it's like 3.5% of America's land is housed by like 65% of the population. It was like statistics like that, but it didn't actually like describe the different dimensions at which overpopulation affected the Earth or or America in general. So yeah, that's how it be. And then I guess the last point that I wanted to hit, because I, I don't know, I feel like this one wasn't done too well, and I apologize for that. The last point that I was gonna hit is why overpopulation is not a problem. And it's not that I didn't actually spend a whole lot of time on generating this particular point, but just of like some things that I've heard from other people. So I've listened to different takes on the overpopulation crisis, and there's some named voices that say that it's not a worthwhile thing to worry over either. And here's like some of their perspectives that they said. It's the resource flow is the problem. Like, people can't figure out how to optimize like resource flow in order to get things where they need to be, where they need to go to. And so the overpopulation problem is more of a management of resources that is easily fixable, which is why they don't share the same pessimistic attitude towards the population. And one from Elon Musk is that like some people claim the overpopulationist claim that the natural resources can't or is like depleting so fast that there'll be problems in like tens, 20s, even centuries later down the road for the Earth. And some people have generated a different outcome than what those guys have said, and pretty much said the opposite, that like Earth would still have natural resources. Like there's a lot more to have been reached from, and therefore they're making the claim that the natural resources will still be a resource to us for a lot longer than what these other people are hypothesizing. So, but yeah, I mean, I already said my piece on where I wanted to land on this overpopulationist argument. Like, I understand like both views, which is a very cop out answer. I don't like saying that, but I don't necessarily know where I should stand. I haven't read too much of the literature to know, to be like up to date on where these people are coming from, or what perspective I should take for myself. So that's where I'm at with that. I think that about does it for this podcast though. So I think I'll generate something for next week, because I know the past month I've been quiet. So I think in order to make up for the one like 2 weeks ago, I'll do something for next week. Now I'll have that out hopefully by like Wednesday or Thursday. We shall see. I know in the future I might be traveling, more as like a vacation moment for myself, because I definitely need a vacation. So there might be like 1 week in the future where I'm not able to attend, and I'll have some, or maybe 2 weeks, since I think I might do like a Saturday and then like a week into the next Sunday. So, but I'll let you guys know when that is. I should be able to plan that out actually by today. So, anyways, thank you guys for listening. I'll make sure to keep you guys more up to date, especially in the podcast realm. If you would like, I do update the Discord realm a lot more. We have some different discussions going on in the hideout. So, yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.